שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. Everyone, good evening. We're really honored that you've all come tonight as we anticipate Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, which is on Thursday. But we wanted to use tonight as an opportunity because this is the night when our high school program is together anyway. And we wanted to be able to bear witness to one of the extraordinary individuals in our community. Just last week, I officiated at 2 different funerals, both for Holocaust survivors. And it hit so close to home that every chance we get to hear firsthand from someone who is there, it is a commandment that is incumbent upon us. Zachor, remember, our tradition teaches. And so this is an opportunity and an obligation to be here as a community, as an Akiba community, as a Culver City community, to bear witness and to remember. Before we invite our guest speaker forward, I'm going to invite 2 of our students forward, Ian and Rebecca. If you'll both come forward. And I'm going to ask for our students who are sitting on the side to move forward and to join us in the congregation. That would be helpful. Thank you. Those of you who did anyone not receive a handout on your way in? So a few of you. So, hold on. Yeah, thank you, Maya. You can hand those out. Ian, why don't you come forward and lead the first reading?
A passage from Night by Elie Wiesel. Never shall I forget that night, the first night in the camp, which has turned my life into one long night. 7 times cursed and 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget that smoke, Never shall I forget the little faces of the children, whose bodies I saw turned to wreaths of smoke beneath a silent blue sky. Never shall I forget those flames which consumed my faith forever. Never shall I forget the nocturnal silence which deprived me for all eternity of the desire to live. Never shall I forget those moments which murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams into dust. Never shall I forget these things, even if I am condemned to live as long as God himself. Never.
In spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. I simply can't build up my hopes on a foundation consisting of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder, which will destroy us too. I can feel the sufferings of millions, and yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out.
Thank you so much. Ian is in our 9th grade and Rebecca is in our 11th grade. And each of the readings that they offered, the first one by Elie Wiesel, Elie was about the same age that Ian is now when he experienced this. And Rebecca is about the same age that Anne Frank was when she was in hiding. Witnessing two of our high school students, just close your eyes for a moment and imagine each of them having written these passages rather than having the freedom to be part of our program tonight and throughout this year. We live in an extraordinary time. And it was not too long ago that we would never have been able to have these kinds of freedoms. With this perspective in mind, one of our congregants who's here was a teenager in those years. And even though he has shared his story with us before, and even though we will invite him to share his story again in the future, it's stories like this that we need to hear over and over again because they unfold in our souls. Maury Price is a longtime member of Temple Akiba, and he and his extraordinary wife, Shirley, come to our congregation on a regular basis with so much warmth and so much love and incredible goodness. It's with great humility and with deep honor that I invited Maury to come and to share his story with us today so that all of us could be witness to what he went through and what he became through the journey of his life. Morris, I invite you forward, and we give you a round of applause as you come forward. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. I was born in Poland. I was 12 years old when Germany occupied Poland. It was September 1939. I was the youngest of 6. My dad used to do business with farmers. He traveled between 5 and 10 miles. When I say traveled, he had his own horse and buggy. Like you have a car, he had his own horse and buggy. So he was considered middle class. He didn't have to walk. And by visiting farmers, he used to buy cattle. Sometimes if he has a good day, he might buy a dozen calves. Sometimes a slower day, a little less. bring him into the city and sell him to the butchers. And basically, that's what he did all the time. I remember when it was school vacation for myself, my dad would take me with him for the day, and the farmers made a big to-do out of me, bring me food, things like that. So my childhood was pretty good. But between 1939 and 1940 became very difficult for the Jewish people. The Jewish kids couldn't attend public school. Jewish kids couldn't attend other things. My dad, he couldn't, if he didn't have to be on the street, he wasn't. Because a lot of times him being on the street and you have a German assessment, finding he had a beard, he would cut his beard and have fun by cutting his beard and laughing and things like that. So basically, if he didn't have to be, he wasn't. But no matter how bad it was, from 1939 till 1942, we still lived at home as a family. In the summer of 1942, a new law came out that every Jewish person has to report at a designated area at a designated day. We're going to be relocated. Two of my sisters thought they would like to go, instead of reporting, would like to go into hiding. And since my dad had a lot of farmer friends, a farmer came over and picked up my two sisters, and they went into hiding, and the rest of the family reported that day. And that was the first time we were separated. My dad was sent to some labor camp. My mom and my older sister, which she was, and my grandmother also lived with us, they were also sent to some camp. Except my older sister, my grandmother and my mother was in the late 60s, my grandmother was 90s. And if my older sister, which was around 35, if she was separated from them, she might have landed in some labor camp. But if she stayed together, they didn't have any facilities for people in that age. So they went to the gas chamber within a day or so. I don't know how they died, but I know they died in the gas chambers. My two brothers and myself, we were together. And after being in that labor camp for approximately 7 months or something like that, also my two sisters, since we were in war and hiding, they were able to come back to the home, and they stayed in our house. After being in that labor camp for approximately 7 months or something like that, we heard a rumor that they're supposed to have a final liquidation. So I must have talked over with my brothers, and I will try to run away from the camp and make my way home and tell my sisters about the rumor. And with the help of a Polish family that lived near the camp that we met, I told him if he would help me when I ran away, escape, help me get home, like buy a couple tickets by train, and he will act like my father, or I will act like his son. When we get to our house, he can help himself to whatever he wants. And I did, on my way back to work one time, were able to sneak away, and I met that man, and I remember arriving early in the morning and knocking on the window with my two sisters, and my sister looked up at me like I was a ghost. And the final liquidation did arrive with a matter of several days. And the last evening, my two sisters and myself were able to sneak out of town. We went back to the farmer that my two sisters stayed with for a few days, and he took us back in. But after several days, he came in one morning and he says he is afraid for his family. If he get caught hiding us, his whole family would wind up in a concentration camp or something like that. And he wished we would leave. And nobody could blame him because that was true. But we didn't have any place where to go. So I told my sisters, the labor camp which we were, it was near Krakow. And Krakow is a large city in Poland, and they already had a ghetto over there. I'm sure everybody knows what a ghetto is. And we head towards the ghetto, and we tried to get into the ghetto and take it from there. So we got up early in the morning. It was around October 1942. It was already snow on the ground and things like that. And the farmer we stayed, he was going to have one of his sons show us the back ways. And we followed him for maybe a couple hours, and our guide disappeared. And one of my sisters started crying, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? I assured her, don't worry, we'll make it. We kept on going in the same direction for the rest of the day. It was getting dark. We happened up in a house. We didn't know where we were. We knocked on the door. It was a Polish family. They recognized us and they said, we will help you. And they did. We were able to stay there overnight. And from that area, they already had a streetcar that went into Krakow. And somebody from the family also worked in Krakow. So the next day, we took the same streetcar, and he told us where to get off that was near the ghetto, and we were able to get into the ghetto. Within a few days, I don't know how it happened, my two sisters were able to come into the labor camp, and they would open like a kitchen or something, and they would cook soups for the prisoners. At that time, the prisoners still had some money, and they charged them, I don't know, $0.25 for a bowl of soup or whatever it is. And the Germans, there wasn't SS, there were civilians, they were in charge of the work detail. They got the soup for free, so it worked out okay. And that's how they were able to stay in that labor camp. Myself, I couldn't go back to the detail that I was, so I went back to a different detail, and I stayed there till about March 1943. And for some reason, the detail I was, the man in charge took a dislike to me for whatever it was, and he sent me back to the Krakow ghetto. In the Krakow ghetto, I was working on the street, cleaning, things like that, and they always used to have that rounded up people and send them someplace, but one day you saw your friend and the next day he wasn't there anymore. I managed to remain in the Krakow ghetto till about March 1943. I managed to hide when I saw somebody rounding up and things like that. In March 1943, my luck ran out, and I was rounded up with another few hundred, and by open truck was sent to Auschwitz, Birkenau, where they had the gas chambers and the crematoriums. When we arrived in Birkenau, we were told to remain on the trucks. And they started sorting you out. You get off, you remain, you get off, you remain. By the time the truck was half full or half empty, I was supposed to remain on the trucks. And I looked around at myself, younger ones like myself, and elderly people, and the ones in the 20s and the 30s or the 40s were told to get off. My instinct says this is the wrong place to stay, and I observed the guard when he looked in this other direction. The split second, I was able to jump off and go with the group that was told to get off. If I hadn't done it, I wouldn't be here. After everything was settled, we marched in to a huge room. We undressed, and then we walked through another door, and that was a shower. And we took a shower, and we walked through the third door. By the time you walked through the third door, you were like newborn, nothing had, everything that you had disappeared. But I was supposed to go in the door where after the shower you were gassed. But since I jumped the truck and everything like that, so when I got into the shower, we had water. But the people, when the other group, when they got in the shower, they were gassed. After this process was finished, we went to a different barracks. We got a crew cut. And we got tattooed a number. You didn't have a name, you were just a number. And we were assigned to a barrack and assigned to a work detail. It's hard to describe the condition what we lived over there. You work, also, yeah, the rations you were given at night for 24 hours was like an oblong loaf of bread. I don't remember whether it was a quarter or an eighth. And this was your bread ration for 24 hours. You will also get a bowl of soup at that night. And I remember if they had some soup left over, like a few hours earlier, I was too young to wind up in this camp, but when they had a little soup left over, they would give it to some youngster first before they give it to the older one. So go figure. Again, to describe this, it's very difficult. You got up early in the morning, you worked all day, in the summer it was hot, in the winter it was cold. You could, the clothes you had was all disappeared. You were given some like wooden shoes for a while. It's kind of difficult to describe it, but I'm going to try to do it. I remember I was near an SS barracks one time, and I was looking through the trash camp, and I got caught looking to the trash cans, and I was taken in the hallway, and I was beaten with some stick. I don't remember what it was, and the stick broke, and they were going to get another one, and I jumped out and ran out, and they let me go. Another time, I came down with typhoid fever. I was taken to one, it was called an infirmary. It wasn't an infirmary, it was basically a barrack that you laid in the thing. I was laying on a cot on a bed, I don't know for how long. I was unconscious. My fever broke, and I was trying to get out, and I wanted to get out from that barrack because I didn't know when they could come into that barrack. It was like an infirmary, and they cleaned it out and take it to the gas chamber. But one day I went to the group what is to be discharged from there, and he went like that, and I fell over. So I had to go back in the same thing. The next day, I managed to get out. When I got out, the ground wasn't level. It was like wavy or something like that. It wasn't the ground. I must have still been delirious. But I went back to the work detail where I was working, and I still recuperated a little bit. Again, it was unbelievable. But then the Russian army came close to Auschwitz. When the Russian army got closer to Auschwitz, we were rounded up, most of us, and were put in a cattle car. And when they opened the doors from the cattle car, we were on the outskirts of Dachau concentration camp. In Dachau concentration camp was basically the same thing. You worked long hours, and the food was kind of, and I know a lot of times when you got this piece of bread at night, somebody would eat a small piece and leave another piece to save for the next day in the morning. And when we slept, we didn't have our own bunks. We slept like four on a bunk. When he woke up in the morning, that piece of bread was gone. So if you were trying to save a piece of bread, you had to sleep with one eye open. Otherwise, it disappeared. Again, we were there after being there for, in Dachau, then the American army came close to Dachau. When the American army came close to Dachau, they marched us away from the American army. We were marching for X amount of days. If you couldn't continue, if you dropped, I don't know what happened to them. We never saw these people again. And after marching for X amount of days, a high-ranking German army officer with some soldiers passed by, and he said, the war is lost, not to march us any longer. The American army is behind us. To leave us here was near a gymnasium, a school, to await the American army. So we were taken to this place, and after being there for a couple hours or 2 or 3 hours, a different SS unit passed by, and they say, we don't take orders from the army. And they picked up half or 3/4 of us. I wasn't amongst the first one that picked up. And I felt they're going to come back after us. So the place we were, I was able to climb into the attic. It was a false ceiling. But on the corner, on a 2x4, I lay there for the rest of the night, the day and the night. And the following morning, I was just like I was the only man on the universe. Nobody was there. And it wasn't until about 2 hours when I saw the first American Jeep with American soldiers, and I was liberated. And then a couple other survivors showed up, and we had food. We were free. There were some houses nearby, and I was able to get into one of the houses. There was nobody there, and the water was running. So I took a shower and changed clothes. And again, we hung around the American soldiers and were free. There was a displaced persons camp nearby. So I figured I'll go in and maybe I'll find somebody. I went to the camp. I met somebody, and he says, your brother and I, we were liberated together, and he said he's going to Poland. So no way will he know when I'm alive or not. So the camp was near Munich. So I went into Munich. In Munich, I had met another couple friends, one of them from my hometown, and the three of us headed for Poland. In Germany, after the war, I was free. The German people that you met, some of them were ashamed, some of them didn't know, and they were trying to be nice to help you whatever you can. So, but we heading for Poland. We arrive at the border, the Czech-Polish border, and people ask, oh yeah, on our way to Poland, from Germany, the first stop I made is in Prague. And we get off the train, I get off the train in Prague, walk the platform towards the station, and again I meet somebody from my hometown, and he says to me, your two sisters also survived. Your brother is with him. And he gives me the name and the address of the city in Poland where they live. Now, some people call that a small world. But I don't call it a small world. I always felt that I had a guardian angel, but this time I felt, I believe in God. I believe that some angel from heaven came down and told me where to find my sisters. We arrived at the place where my sisters were living. I think it was a weekend, and they had some friends over there. And when I knocked at the door, she said, can I help you? I said, is somebody by this name live here? She said, yes, who are you? I said, I'm their little brother. So she runs in and screams that I'm here, and one of my sisters fainted. But again, if you live in a camp, they help you. When you live on your own, you have to support yourself. So, a senior moment. So we, when we got to Poland, we didn't have any money or anything like that, but where did I stop? Okay. 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 All right. We in Poland. We arrived at my sisters and everything, and okay, yeah, okay. My brother was going to a swap machine, and I said, I go alone, and I have nothing to do. On our way there, we get stopped by the Polish police, and they asked me for papers. And I said I didn't have a chance to get any papers. I was supposed, I just got here, and so he says to me, you don't honor the Polish government. You were supposed to get the papers at the border. I'm going to write up a report and go throw you in jail, and you're going to stay there for the rest of your life. Well, some of the other guys had money, and they found the money, and they took the money away, and they let us go. And that's when we got back to my sisters, I said to my sister, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting out of here. I'm going back to Germany, no matter what was in Germany before. In Germany, I was free. And it was right after the war. And they still had some prisoners in Poland that were Italian prisoners that were going back to Italy, to Germany. And we managed to get back to Germany. And in Germany, at that time, I was free. And I was able to do some business and everything. My brother, which was the oldest, he got married in December 1945. My other sister, one of my sisters, got married in the summer of 1946. And my younger sister got married in the winter of 1946. But when my younger sister got married, she kind of wanted a wedding. And I was able, by that time, I was able to do business in Germany and I was making money. I don't know exactly how I was doing, but I remember one thing I did. When my sister, when she came to Germany from Poland, she had a 1,000-mark bill. And a 1,000 mark wasn't on the market every day, so you had to go to a certain bank to cash it. And at that time, I was already close to, with some other friends, close to an army, American army place where the soldiers came in, and I was doing business with them. I had coffee and cigarettes and things like that. So when I go in to cash that $1,000 bill, and I was asking, can he cash it for me? He said, sure. So I give him a pack. I asked him, if I have some more, can you do it for me? He said, sure. So I give him my pack of cigarettes, and I used to be able to buy the 1,000-mark bills for about $750 or $800. And on my way back, I stopped at the bank and I cash it, and I was making money. And when my younger sister got married, it was very difficult, even if you had money, but everything was rationed. If you want to get some, whatever you want to get, you had to have, it was like on the black market or the things like that. And by then, I already knew a lot of people. I knew a butcher shop, I knew things. And when my younger sister got married, she wanted a wedding. But they did the baking themselves. But I also met somebody that owned a restaurant, a German lady, and she said, like she was like my mother. She said, anything I want, she get. And she did have a restaurant. And when my younger sister got married, we had the restaurant to our disposal. We had the waitress, and I made her the most beautiful wedding. Unfortunately, my family passed away since. I'm still the last one left. But every time when she met something, she always said, he made me my wedding. Yeah. But life goes on. And like I said, they passed away. But we got in 1955. Oh yeah, in 1948 or something like that, I was able to register to immigrate to the United States. I was the first one. Most of my family, my brothers, they were able to do it too, but they had to wait longer. One of my brother-in-laws, that he was a watchmaker, so he says when you go into the United States, you don't have a trade, what are you going to do? So he taught me watch repair. It wasn't my choice, but I could get a job as a watch repairman. I came over to the United States in 1948, 49. My memory is not that good. My pause. Lately, it got a little worse than before. I came over in 1949, and when I left Germany, I was told I'm going to Stockton, California. Therefore, I came by ship to New Orleans. When I arrived in New Orleans, the social worker that met us said, something has changed. They don't have room for you in Stockton. You're going to Nashville, Tennessee. Well, little did I know from Nashville or Stockton, but actually Nashville was okay. When we arrived in Nashville, the social worker that met us said they had contacted the Jewish Community Center in Nashville, and the Jewish Community Center found us families that took us in. The following day, the social worker that met me was taking me to the Jewish lady. She was a widower. The next day, her son came to visit her, and he met me. He said, what do you do? I said, I do watch repair. He said, I know a lot of people, I'll ask around. And he called his mother the next day, and he gave me an address to go see it. And the following day, early in the morning, I went down to see him. It was a pawn shop in Nashville. It was owned by a Jewish family. And he asked me, have you had breakfast? He wanted to make sure I've eaten. I said, yes. He says, there's a desk and go to work. He had a watchmaker. He didn't need another watchmaker, but he gave me a job. He put me to work. And the same day or the next day when I got the job, I signed up for night school. I signed up for 2 nights a week in public night school. 2 times a week I went to the Jewish Community Center. They had somebody taught us English. And even on Sunday, there was one lady, had a few of us that taught us English too. And when you have to go and then when I started working, I went out to lunch with another salesman, and we went to some cafeterias. And in the start, I didn't know what to order. I used to point. But again, like I said, I learned pretty fast. And after working there for about a month or so, when I started working, I was making $25 a week. That was pretty good at that time. And after a couple months, he gave me a $5 raise. And after another couple of months, I asked him for another raise. He said, I'm paying you too much already. But I'm going to open up another store, and I'm going to transfer you, and I'm going to give you a raise. Also, every police officer, from including the chief of police, if they wanted to buy something that had to do with jewelry or something like that, came into that pawn shop. So I knew how to drive a car, but I didn't have a driver's license. So one of the sergeants came in one day. He says to him, could you take him down and get him a driver's license? A couple hours later, I was back. I had a driver's license. And he did open up another store across the state line in Kentucky, and he transferred me there. And I did get a nice raise. After a while, I started $25 a week. I was making $65 a week. And he had like a pickup truck, and I used the pickup truck because in the other pawn shop, it was open for 12 hours, and his brother-in-law was the manager. So he stayed there from 1 week from 8 till 6, and the next week I was I was from 12 to 8, and we changed 1 week, and everything was going okay, and I was working. And then the Korean War broke out. And since I had applied to become a citizen, I was eligible for the draft for the United States Army. And I was drafted in the United States Army. Being in the Army at that particular time, in the outfit I got in, one of the lieutenants says, where are you from? When I opened my mouth, everybody asked me, where are you from? So I said I was born in Poland. Well, his family was from Poland and everything, so we already had a camaraderie. And the same lieutenant, after about a few months later, he was transferred and he was taking over an outfit. The whole company was going to Germany. And he knew I lived in Germany, so he looked me up. He says, Maury, I'm going to Germany. You want to go with me? I said, sure, why not? Why wait to be shipped to Korea, baby? So, so the next day, I'm on my way to Germany. How faithful changes. A few years ago, I was in a German concentration. You jump up a few years later, I got back to Germany as an American soldier as occupation. Well, I finished my tour of duty. They even asked me to stay on because any place we had to go for the company, I went and I got organized. And I did come back. I went back to work for the same company, but I didn't do watch repair anymore. I knew business, and I was transferred to another store, in a higher jewelry store, a small jewelry store, and I managed it. And then my brother-in-law, the watchmaker, that he would live in South Bend, Indiana. He had family also in Culver City, and he had moved to Culver City, and I didn't like there anymore. And I came to Culver City in 1955, right? And I got a job as in the jewelry store. I was managing the store, and then we had several stores, and I was even in charge, a district manager for several stores. And then in 1981, I was able to open up. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm skipping the most important part. See these moments does. And in 1960, I met a beautiful girl. And in 1961, we got married. And we had 3 wonderful children. My children, I remember it was one morning I got up, was kind of late, and I went to whatever it is. And the light was on in the other room, and I walked in, my son was studying. I said, Michael, you got to go to sleep. You have a test tomorrow. He said, that's why I'm studying. And I didn't have to make, he was a valedictorian from junior high and a valedictorian from high school. I'm bragging now. And he took 4 tests, and was Spanish, English, and another test, and he won all of them. We have 4 trophies in the house. He wound up in Stanford, and from Stanford he went to Yale Medical School. We're very proud of him. My daughter was the same thing. She is a school psychologist in Culver City school system, and we're very proud of her. My youngest son, when he was about in middle school, one of the teachers said, David is kind of clumsy. So he went to a different school, and when he was also still in middle school, we noticed that it was a little more than clumsy. And we took him to a neurologist, and the neurologist said he's going to wind up in a wheelchair. We didn't want to accept it, and we went through the UCLA system in the same findings. And it got progressively a little worse. But instead of a wheelchair, I bought him a battery-operated 3-wheeler. I'm sure you know what we see people going. And I bought him a black leather jacket, and he considered that his motorcycle. We found out later that he was a pretty cool kid. He used to give girls rides from class to class. But his quality of life caught up with him. He was 33 years old. He went to sleep and passed away in sleep. And that, I thank God for that. It was a blessing. Because my oldest son would ask me, what's going to happen with David if you're not around anymore? I said, I'm not going to worry about it. I still have maybe a few years, so I'm going to worry about it later. We never had, my son used to say to us, if your mom want to go someplace on vacation and everything, we take care of David. I said, no, we're fine, we're fine. We didn't have any desire. But after he passed away, a few years later, time passes, we were taking a trip that was supposed to start in Prague and finish in Budapest. And I felt, gee, maybe I would like to go back to see that little town where I was born, or maybe go to Auschwitz. And we did extend our trip for a few days. We did go to Auschwitz. They have museums there. The people are not there. The prisoners are not there. It's quiet. It's just a museum. But I want to say the Holocaust did happen. A lot of time I was in I speak at the Museum of Tolerance for people that come in, for school kids and everything. And a young man who was at junior high and a couple young ladies came in and they said, does this museum have any proof that the Holocaust happened? I said, this museum has lots of proof that the Holocaust happened, but I don't know if it can convince you. But I said, I'm a speaker here, and if you want to listen to me, maybe you will, or maybe you won't. For a minute, I thought they weren't going to stay, but while I spoke, I saw they were there. And usually when I finish speaking, I usually stay at the door and thank him for everything, and they thanked me. So evidently, maybe I convinced them the Holocaust happened. And when I speak to high school kids, a lot of times something like that, and when I see a high school young lady, when she has tears in her eyes, and she looks at me, she says, can I give you a hug? That's all the rewards I can get. And it's all the rewards I'm thankful for it. And now I'm going to shut up. My wife tells me I talk too much anyhow. And if you ask me any question, I try to answer them.
So first of all, Maury, our president, Bob Knopf, reminded me that all three of your children became bar bat mitzvah here.
Bar bat mitzvah, yes.
And Bob was at all of them celebrating. When we came into our renovated sanctuary, we had to bring the Torahs in, and there was no question that we wanted you to carry one of the Torahs in because you represent so much about the heart and soul of who we are. With your permission, I thought there may be people who are here who have questions about what you shared that, if you don't mind.
I'll be happy to.
So, and Ray, do we have a microphone? Oh, Alex, okay. So if you raise your hand, Alex will find you and you can ask away.
Alex.
And I got water here for you.
Hi. My brother went through the same thing you did. He was like a 12 and 13 at the same time, and him and his brother went through it, and he was like taking care of the Army's horses. He was treated much better than anyone else because they liked him, and he would like steal apples to bring to them to starving. And he was saying they were they wouldn't feed you, but they would take the shells or the peels from the potatoes and bury them so that the prisoners couldn't have them, and they put lye on them. They would come at night and they would take it out and wash them off and make potato soup out of it. Really, really hard times. But he hated Poland. He never wanted to go back. You didn't speak poorly about Poland, so you didn't have that kind of feeling about Poland because they took away the houses they confiscated and everything?
I hated Poland too.
Okay.
And like I said, in Poland, after even survived the thing, but I didn't follow the Polish thing. You know, at the border, I didn't wait for get papers. That's when he said, he's going to write up a report and throw me in jail for the rest of their life. So, in fact, when I was in Poland, and I had to wait from one city to go to one city, we had to wait for a stopover to change trains. We were the three of us. We stood in the shadows. We didn't want to be seen. We didn't want to see it. So Poland is a nice place to be from.
So you had those feelings about Poland, but what about Germany? This whole thing wouldn't have started without the Gestapo in Germany. So yet I'm not hearing any animosity or ill will about going back to Germany. Tell me what that's about.
Well, the German people now, and the German people even then, some of them were involved in this, some of them was assessed, but the people that I met, I got in front, they were ashamed that what happened. And the German people, even that particular right, that they were trying to make up for it. I can't forget what happened to me. I will never forget what the German SS and the things like that, and even the other German people, what they did. But I learned hating is a bad thing for you, because it hurts you and it hurts the people around you. So I don't forget what happened, but I don't drool on them. I like to be I like to be happy and have around the people, and like sometimes when I talk and people says, how come you're so happy, come you're so smile, and I'll be happy and make the people happy too.
So my question is, well, first I have to say thank you so much for sharing your story. It's very uplifting, and to see you be so happy and upbeat is really something amazing, so thank you. Was it always easy for you to talk about? Did you go through a time, because like my mom didn't want to talk about it, like she kind of would poo-poo my question, so how did you get to be comfortable talking about it, and was it the same for your siblings?
Okay, I guess you heard that question. But, I went once to the Museum of Tolerance, like a guest, something like that, and I heard a lady talk like that, like I was talking, and I went to the director over there. I said, I went, or she met me or something like that. I would be happy to, I'm a survivor, and I would be happy to talk to. And she says, could you write up like a few pages, what you're going to talk about it? And with the help of computers and my wife, we wrote up about 6 pages what I'm going to talk about it, and basically what I'm doing. And she said, I'd love to have you. And I have been talking at the Museum of Tolerance for the last 10 years. And again, I feel great when I talk to people. And the reason is the 2 things. You can't forget the Holocaust. And the young people here, when they get older sometimes, and they have a family, and maybe their kids go to school, and it's taught in schools, and they will ask him, did you come home and did you ever hear about the Holocaust and things like that? And you can say, yes, I listened to one when I was in school. So that is basically what the survivors do right now. Not to forget, and to let the younger generation know about this. And the only thing I say to the younger generations, stay in school, get your education. It's important. It will come handy when you get older. It might be difficult to get a class sometimes, but if you will it, it will come, you will make it. So if you have a bad day someday with the friend or the teacher or something like that, don't let it stay with you. Say, get over it. Say, I can do it. I'm not going to dwell on it. And I myself do the same thing. Every day I think, thank God, I'm healthy, and I walk every morning. I do like this, and if the same thing, just stay upbeat, even if it's difficult sometimes, but stay upbeat. Yes.
First of all, thank you very much. And also thank you, my grandson did a Holocaust paper. And he interviewed you at the Museum of Tolerance. Or is it here? Okay, sorry. The second thing I wanted to ask was, did you find families after the war, after the Holocaust, some went towards God, some went against God, even though they were in the same family? Some believed in God, would do anything. And how did that turn out? I mean,
if families that believe in God or don't believe, I don't try to talk religion to people. I tell them what I believe in God.
what about the same families?
My family, my kids are brought up like in the, not conservative.
What she's saying is, for instance, our same brother, they both survived the Holocaust. One turned against God because God let this happen to them. The other one went towards God because he survived what happened.
Now, his children are very dedicated to God. The other one,
It's yeah, it's some, yeah.
Your whole family was all rooted.
Yeah, they were all, I never had any problem. The only thing I once had is when my son got to bar mitzvah here, he thought it was finished. But then we had, who was here, the thing, he told him he got to go for confirmation.
We're going to take a couple more questions, and I know that our young people will have some questions. I want to make sure that their voices.
Did you end up having your bar mitzvah?
Did I have having a bar mitzvah? No, unfortunately, I don't remember having a bar mitzvah, no. But
We have an opportunity now.
yeah, I know. I had a lot of people when they certain age. My wife had a bat mitzvah here, So I guess it's about time I have a bar mitzvah here. Okay.
Thank you so much for speaking. I couldn't help but think about as wonderful an opportunity as it is to be American today. There are certain political things that are going on that have sort of shown us that there's a darker side to people's attitudes in this country. And I was wondering if there was anything that you and your family had thought, I wish we had done something before this all happened, or if the community had ever thought, what could we have done to have stopped this from progressing to where it got to in Germany? And is there anything that we can learn for today, God forbid, things get any darker or worse?
Well, everything that I did and things like that, I feel I don't have any things that I would say I wish I'd have done differently or so. I feel comfortable what we accomplished. I feel comfortable what we did. When we first came here, my brother-in-law was my sister. They used to come to Temple Akiba they weren't members, but they come to Temple Akiba for holidays, Hi-Ho holidays, and we came too. And when my son became bar mitzvah, we joined the temple when my son was 7 years old, so he was able to go to the mitzvah. And a lot of people, when the kids are finished with bar and bat mitzvah, they leave the temple. But we felt the temple is ours, and we belong from there. We stayed in the temple, and I have a very good inner feeling when I'm in the temple. So the temple means a lot to me. And my kids is the same thing. They didn't continue, but my daughter especially, she is a school psychologist, and she comes in here we belong to the temple, and my kids are Jewish.
Okay, so recently I was in Israel, and I went to the museum for the Holocaust that's there, and it was really important to me that I went there because my grandma was also a survivor of the Holocaust, and she was in hiding for a lot of her life, and so that was really important. And while I was there, since he brought up the bar and bat mitzvah, they have this program where you can adopt a child, and in honor of them, you have a bar and bat mitzvah. So I had a bat mitzvah here, and then I also had one in Israel. And the one in Israel was in honor of a girl who was also from Portugal, and I was able to, at the wall, have a bat mitzvah in honor of her. So it was really amazing for me to be able to do that because she had passed in the Holocaust and wasn't able to do it for herself. So I did it in honor of her.
Well, I'm sure your adult parents and your sisters are very proud of you. And you did what you felt like doing, and I'm proud of you too.
The bulletin that's about to come out is actually hot off the press. It's our new bulletin. Has a whole profile, a spotlight that Sharam did with Maury. And so when you get this, you can read a little bit more about this extraordinary soul. On Thursday in Israel, there's a siren that will go off throughout the country, in every town and in every city. And when that siren occurs, the entire country stops. If you're driving on a freeway, you stop your car and you get out. If you are in a high-rise building, you stop your work and you stand up. If you're a student in school, you put your pencils or your iPads down and you step away. If you're a storekeeper, you step outside your store. Who here has been in Israel on Yom HaShoah, on one of these days? So a couple of you have been. In anticipation of what our people will do on Thursday, I'm going to ask that you all please rise in solidarity for a moment of silence in remembrance of all those who were murdered during those years. Please be seated, everyone. I'm going to call forward two more of our students, Alex and Maya. Maya, I think I gave you the wrong reading, but you'll make it up here. So Alex is in our 11th grade, and Maya is in the 8th grade this year. Alex, why don't you begin?
First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me.
The last, the very last, so richly, brightly, dazzlingly yellow. Perhaps if the sun's tears would sing against a white stone, such a yellow, is carried lightly way up high. It went away, I'm sure, because it wished to kiss the world goodbye. For 7 weeks I've lived in here, panned up inside the ghetto. But I have found my people here. The dandelions call to me, and the white chestnut candles in the court. Only I never saw another butterfly. That butterfly was the last one. Butterflies don't live in here, in the ghetto.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Alex. These readings that were shared are among the most extraordinary. What Alex read by Reverend Niemöller talks about the importance to stand up against that which is wrong. And one of the greatest atrocities in Nazi Europe was that people didn't stand up. And what Maya read was written by a child in the ghetto. And as Maury taught us, even in the face of inhumanity, we can still notice beauty, even if there's melancholy in it. I want to close with the singing of Eli Eli. And this is a poem written by Chana Senesh, who is a paratrooper for the Haganah. And she was in a prison in Poland in the 1940s, captured by the enemy. And even from her prison cell, she was able to remember that there's light and goodness in the world. And so I'm going to ask once again for the community to rise. The words are on your sheets here. Eli, Eli, shelo yigameh leolam, hachol ve'hayam, rishru shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat adam, hachol ve'hayam, rishrush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat adam. O Lord my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. Everyone, thank you so much for being with us this evening. And again, as we shared before, whenever you have an opportunity to hear one person's story, we make sure that the Holocaust continues to be part of our own story and not someone else's. Amen and amen. Shalom.